You know, there's a lot of actors that's been in a lot of movies that did big numbers in the box office. But this man, Tiny Lister Jr., has been in some of the biggest money-making movies to ever hit the screen. Now, his size might scare people, being 6'5", close to 300 pounds, bald head, deep voice, and a lazy eye, but in reality, he was one of the nicest people you could ever meet. A real gentle giant. And it's crazy because Tiny said he used to wear shades because he was ashamed of his right eye, and he hated God for that. Until one day he just stopped hiding and took the shades off and started doing movies, and next thing you know, his eye became his trademark in Hollywood. And he said God spoke to him and said, "You thought your eye was a curse, but it really was a blessing." After that made him very religious after that. He got over 30 years in the showbiz industry, over 250 acting credits from TV shows, movies, and videos. 250. Wow. I'm talking, look, he don't work with Marlon Brando, Tupac, Bruce Willis, Hulk Hogan, Chuck Norris, Quentin Tarantino, Whoopi Goldberg, Michael J. Everybody. 3 toy action figures made of him, from Zeus to Clang on Star Trek, and Cassius from the movie Little Nicky with Adam Sandler. And he was inducted into the NCAA Division II Track and Field Hall of Fame. Ice Cube said he was America's favorite bully and was a born entertainer who would pop into character at the drop of a hat, terrifying people on and off the camera. But he followed that with a big smile and laugh. Let's get into his story, right? Now, Tommy Tiny Lister was born on June 24th, 1958 in Compton, California. Now, he was the second of 4 children, and his father was a truck driver and his mother was a housewife. Now, Tiny, he was born blind in his right eye due to a detached and deformed retina. And growing up in Compton, California, during the time with crack, street gangs, and shootouts was all over the area, he decided to just not get into that. He decided to just stay away from that stuff. And then look, believe it or not, he used to get bullied and made fun of because of his eye. And the bullies would chase him home all the time until his mother made him fight back. Now, he also went to school with Crips gang leader Tookie Williams, and said his school was so bad that one time they had a shootout and 13 people were shot. And when they put the school on lockdown and searched, they would find like 30 to 40 guns. Even the teachers had guns in the school. Wow, that's crazy. Another person he also idolized was Rolling 60s gang leader Big U, who y'all probably know from managing rapper Nipsey Hussle. But anyway, now, in high school, right, he was a loner, but he loved sports. And he became a track and field star, especially in shot put. Now, y'all know shot put. That's that Olympic sport when you throw that heavy ball long distance. You got to be strong to throw that ball, man. But look, the crazy part is Tiny's dream was to work for the Secret Service protecting the president. Now, after graduating from high school, he went to Long Beach City College. Then he enrolled to Cal State for track and field and the shot put. And he ended up breaking all types of school records, becoming national champion. And he broke the school record like 7 times in 1 year. And he also got his nickname Tiny during that time from his coach, who thought kids would get a kick out of it, calling him Tiny, even though he was a big guy. Now, after that, everybody wanted him to try out for football, even though he never played football, but because of his size, being 6'5", 275 pounds with muscles, and he could bench press over 500 pounds. They thought he'll be perfect for the NFL. And look, the Rams and the 49ers, they wanted him, but he hurt his leg before he went to tryout. I think he did run, but I think he didn't, the time they wanted, he didn't get because he had hurt his leg. Plus, he said he had a bad agent representing him at that time, which messed up the deal for him. So instead, he ended up playing for the New Orleans Breakers in the USFL, but he was let go after 2 games. Now, after leaving football, he became a bouncer for a nightclub and ended up meeting a guy named Walter Hill, who at the time directed the movie Another 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy. And he did the movie Warriors. And Walter Hill thought Tiny would be good for a new movie he was doing called Blue City. After getting that role, that's when he began to take acting serious and wanted to do it full time. Now the crazy part is, his parents told him not to act and get a real job, and they never believed in him. Look, Tiny said in an interview that his parents used to speak death on his name. That's why he had to cut him off, because he really believed he could be a great actor. The only person who he really had love for in his family was his grandmother, who always gave him good advice. And his grandmother used to be a maid for actress Lucille Ball from the show I Love Lucy. Man, who remembers that show? I Love Lucy. But anyway, now, one of his good friends he used to work out with during that time was Jimmy Bridges, who was the older brother of Todd Bridges from the show Different Strokes. And Tiny asked him, could he introduce him to their dad, Jim Bridges, because he was a talent agent with connections at the time. Now, after getting with Jim Bridges, he started to land some good roles like the movie Armed and Dangerous with actor John Candy and Beverly Hills Cop 2 with Eddie Murphy. But the biggest role he landed was for the movie No Holds Barred with the wrestler Hulk Hogan, in which I loved that movie as a kid, man. Look, I was a big wrestling fan back then. All the action figures, Junkyard Dog, Ricky Steamboat, everybody. I loved wrestling back then. But look, when Tiny heard that they needed somebody to play Zeus, the human wrecking machine, he said he started working out like crazy and he was taking steroids. He went and got a haircut with the letter Z on the side, got some boots made that said Zeus and everything. So when it came to the audition, they couldn't turn him down. Even though there were a lot of other actors trying for that role, but Vince McMahon thought he was perfect. Plus, look, Vince McMahon had the power back then, man. He still got the power. And he put the money up for the movie to be made, which was about $10 million. Now, even though the movie No Holds Barred got bad reviews, it still did good in the box office, and to date, I think it grossed over $100 million. A crazy fact is, when Hulk Hogan accidentally broke Tiny's nose in one of the scenes, Hogan said he was scared for his life, but, Tiny let it go, and they became good friends because they both loved James Brown. Another crazy fact is, Tiny was receiving death threats from Hulkamania fans. That's how big he was at that time. And Tiny, man, look, playing Zeus became so popular that Vince McMahon had to put him in the WWF wrestling and called him Z Gangster. And the crazy part is, a lot of the professional wrestlers at that time were jealous of him, like Andre the Giant, because he wasn't a real wrestler. He said he was just an actor. Because look, the thing was, wrestlers could only make a lot of money if they fought Hulk Hogan. And by him doing the movie with Hogan, Tiny was getting the money. He was getting it, man. Grinding. But Tiny is not going to turn, he ain't turn that offer down, man. He can't turn them offers down because the money was rolling in off the character Zeus. And Hollywood just kept calling him for roles. Now, let me say this though, right? Let me say this. Now, Tiny did say something in an interview that kind of disturbed me when the character Zeus was popular to the world during that time, right? Because look, like I said, Zeus was so popular. First off, he was black. They had toy action figures. The white kids started looking at him like a hero and would draw pictures of him with his foot on Hulk Hogan's throat. And look, people would pay Tiny just to have a conversation with him. That's how big he was at that time. But here's the thing that disturbed me about being black and popular, right? Now, during that time, somebody had offered Tiny like $1 million to fight somebody. And when Vince McMahon found out about that offer, weird stuff started happening to Tiny. Like, police started pulling him over for no reason, cops threatening him, crazy stuff like that. And Tiny got scared. It scared him. And Tiny said that's when he realized he had to stay in his lane, because the streets is nothing compared to people with money, the powers that be, because they can get you touched at any time if you don't obey. And look, one last thing about his character Zeus and why he disappeared. You know why? Hulk Hogan pulled the plug on it. Hating. He was hating. But anyway, now popular, he was getting all types of roles, like the movie Talking Dirty After Dark with Martin Lawrence, Universal Soldier with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Tiny said he couldn't hang with Jean-Claude Van Damme because he liked to start fights and try to take men, women all the time. Look, man, Tiny was doing all types of movies, man. Trespass with Ice-T and Ice Cube, Posse, Meteor Man, Don Juan, DeMarco, Matlock, Fresh Prince, Michael Jackson, Remember the Time video, everything. But the next role that he took would be his biggest one ever, which is Debo in the movie Friday. Now, when it came to looking for the character Debo, the neighborhood bully, they wanted like a big monster type guy, and most of the people that auditioned for that role were like football players, but they couldn't act. That's when they called Tiny, because he was already seasoned and perfect for the role. And you know, Tiny, he just based that character Debo off of his friend from Compton, Big U. Now, the movie Friday was shot in 21 days with a $3.5 million budget and ended up grossing over $30 million at the time. And basically, Ice Cube told all the actors that was in that movie that it was like a favor to him to do the movie, because it was his first movie and he really had no money for him like that. I remember John Witherspoon saying that nobody really got paid, but Tiny said he got like $20,000 for his role. I don't know. Now, after that, he landed another good role as President Lindbergh, the first black president, in the movie The Fifth Element with Chris Tucker and Bruce Willis. I mean, man, Tiny was grinding, man. He worked with rappers like Tupac, Gang Related. He did, who else rappers? He worked with Dr. Dre and Eminem and Nawaj. All the rappers, they loved him. And he was featured in a bunch of music videos. And he said he was real close with Eazy-E. Then he got back with Ice Cube again for the movie Next Friday and got like $250,000 for that role. He was in the Batman Dark Knight movie with Heath Ledger, which grossed over $1 billion. I mean, everything was rolling for Tiny. Life was good. But in 2012, he was charged in a federal court with conspiring to commit mortgage fraud in a scheme that led to $3.8 million in losses, and he was facing 5 years in prison. Now, the story goes with that, his real estate managers and lawyers were crooked and had him get mortgages for 4 houses that he could not afford in order to cash in on about $1.1 million in home equity credit lines based on the property's values. After pleading guilty and cooperating with the feds, the IRS, and the FBI, he owed restitution payments and community service to avoid prison time. But check this though. Now, according to Tiny's cousin, Vincent Brantley, he said Tiny did end up doing time in prison, about 2 to 3 years, and he lost everything. And Tiny, he spoke about the situation and said during that time, he had some bad people in his life who try to use him, but he takes the blame. He ain't sugarcoated, he took the blame. Also around that time, he found out he had type 2 diabetes, and that's when he started to change his diet and would preach to people about how important taking care of your body was. Now, he will also go and talk to kids, gang members, and prison inmates about religion and staying out of trouble and being a positive role model. But in 2019, he was caught on Instagram arguing with his girlfriend, and when he tried to take the phone away from her, she told the fans that was watching the live of them arguing to call the cops. You know what? One of the fans called the cops. But when the cops arrived, no charges were pressed. But Tiny did break up with her after that incident. That's a good thing, man. Now, after that, he continued to star in more movies and did some voice characters for the Cleveland show and the Disney movie Zootopia, which was a big hit in the box office. Plus, he started directing his own movies with his daughter, who he always talked about. He always talked about his daughter. He loved his 2 daughters. Because, he really didn't get along with his family like that. But he loved his 2 daughters. But around August 2020, he was diagnosed with COVID-19. But he beat it. And he felt better and he continued to work. But then, 4 months later, December 10th, 2020, Tiny was found dead in his apartment. Now, the story goes 5 days earlier, he told his friends that he felt weak and was having trouble breathing. And it got so bad that he canceled his first scheduled day of filming for a new movie, which is unusual for him because he never missed shooting a movie. He was complaining about how bad he felt, but he was too weak to go to the doctor and decided to just self-quarantine instead of getting tested for COVID-19. Plus, he was a diabetic, and his manager said he was in great shape and stayed very active during the quarantine months. But a couple of days before he died, she said he was scheduled to appear virtually for a TV festival, but had to cancel because he was having trouble speaking. That's when she sent her assistant to check on him and take him some vitamins and a Z-Pack to help with his symptoms. The next day, friends and family became concerned and tried to call him, but he didn't answer. The next day after that, a friend went to check on him, and when he didn't answer, that's when they called the police and they found him dead. Oh man, what a loss, man. This COVID thing, man, is crazy. But I think they're trying to say that he died of natural causes. I don't know if the autopsy I didn't see the autopsy yet, so I don't know. But as of right now, they're trying to say the whole COVID-19 thing. And Tiny also said he was looking forward to getting the vaccine for COVID. The crazy part is he still have a lot of movies that haven't came out yet he was working on before he passed, including Ice Cube's The Last Friday, in which he said was about to be his biggest payday ever because they was going to make the movie based around him. I think he said he was going to get about $500,000 for the role. He was also working on a book too. Man, he would truly be missed, man. A legend, man. Legend in my eyes, man. He was 62 years old. R.I.P. Tiny Lister. And I wonder, man, if they had started shooting for The Last Friday, because a lot of the cast members are gone now. Bernie Mac, John Witherspoon, Ronaldo Ray, White Boy Roach. Hey, did y'all know White Boy Roach died, man? I think he Yvette Wilson, Michael Clark Duncan.